Well, I never thought of making a video like this, but unfortunately, TikTok is the unwanted gift that just keeps giving. It's basically the place where a lot of people on Gen Z congregate and talk about politics and social issues, and unfortunately, the youngest generation is basically a good roadmap for what the future can look like once those people grow up, once those people manage to get into positions of power. So I think that there's actually great utility in looking at TikTok and seeing what's going on there. So for this video, I'll be reacting to a few woke TikToks and seeing exactly the nature of the arguments that are made and things of that sort. What I'm going to do, though, I see a lot of folks do this, but I'm going to do, though, I'm going to try to treat these videos as seriously as possible, and I'm going to try to give some cogent analysis toward them, because it's one thing to simply mock your enemy. But if you know your enemy, then you should have no trouble addressing his claims and beating him in battle. But if you don't know your enemy, and you are merely blinded by your own bias, then mockery is the only tool that is available to you. If conservatives understood this more in the political conversation, I think that the ideas of Americanism and individualism would be in vogue, and the ideas of wokism and things like that stuff would not be in vogue. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into this video.
What is emoji self? Emoji self is a gender-neutral form of neo-pronouns where an individual will replace a pronoun with an emoji. Now this is primarily only through text or through written communication, because you cannot express an emoji in person, but an individual will replace their pronouns with an emoji. So in their bio, instead of having he, him, they, she, they will have an emoji. But what emojis will they use and why do they do this? Let's talk about it. Like noun self, which is another video I can make, individuals will choose an emoji that best reflects them and their gender identity, or will pick an emoji that they just like. It's as simple as that. And they can have a multitude of...
Okay, let's just stop here. The premise of this, so we have to understand where this comes from, because it seems absurd to anyone that has a basic ounce of common sense, but we must understand where this comes from. The idea, first of all, a lot of people in Gen Z, my generation, grew up through the internet. We grew up interfacing through the digital medium. There was a good book by Nicholas Carr called The Shallows, and in that book he basically says there's something called the digital mind and sort of literary mind. The literary mind is a mind that existed a little bit before the 21st century, that was more exposed to more extensive texts and direct research with physical material, contact with physical medium, DVDs, hardcover books. The digital mind is essentially people who have really only experienced those same things through the internet, and what comes with that is that due to the certain things about the internet, such as the sort of breakneck speed nature of it, such as the sort of endless seeming nature of it, that can cause distractions. And those distractions destroy attention spans. And someone whose attention span is destroyed is someone who's not able to access their rational powers, and therefore they are able or more susceptible to things like this, emoji self, and things of that sort, or the entire idea of being non-binary. The trouble with the non-binary classification is not just that it seems a little bit whimsical, because it does seem whimsical and silly, but also that it denies the fact that that gender does have correlatives to sex. There are physical features that inform what gender is. These things are not just ideas that are made to be dispersed with one's mind or one's thoughts or one's words that can be reformed at a whim. These are actual real things that you have to reckon with, you got to deal with. And really, if we want to get really deeper into the weeds, which I probably won't do for this video, well, there is a concept that is used by people who created this foul idea, like Judith Butler in her book Gender Troubles, that borrow different concepts from different thinkers throughout history, which basically say that all existence, all life is socially constructed, and therefore there is no objective reality, there is no actual truth. We can define these terms as we want. In fact, Judith Butler said as much. She said that the term woman actually has nothing to do with sex. So when you have a society that is rotted from the inside out by postmodernism, you get stuff like this. And we should be very concerned. We should be very sympathetic, though. Because again, as I mentioned, this person, they look young. They grew up in an age where the digital medium usurped their ability to think. we ought to feel much sympathy because this is really unfortunate that this person believes this. Let's continue.
So I've been getting this question more and more about my pronouns. Basically, you just use them as they, but instead of the TH, it's a V. So they, them, their, themself. Or if that's still a little bit confusing, here's like the example of every form of it in a sentence. I see this like sentence.
Okay. They write to themselves in their book. Okay, so again, this is the same kind of problem I was talking about before. The sort of endless nature of the postmodern experiment to destroy language, to destroy truth, to try to separate man from his understanding of the world by basically putting everything in the context of society and not paying any attention to what the natural world might teach us or what, certain principles that are inherent to the human experience might teach us. It would rather just put all those things in the context of power. Now, of course, when I say postmodernism is very big. It's an umbrella term, really. There are plenty of people who would be considered postmodern that actually wouldn't consider themselves postmodern. So I'm not trying to be too loose with the term here, but the woke have this emphasis on power, and this emphasis on power is very destructive. This emphasis on power can do nothing more than take us away from what's actually happening. Let's continue.
I got a message today for some white people. If we have white people listening, paying attention, I wouldn't mind if you would do this with me. We rub our chests, we find our heartbeat, and we say, we did this. We did this.
Did what?
White supremacy did this.
Did what?
I'm talking about Tyree Nichols. The police didn't do this. The Memphis Police Department didn't do this. White supremacy did this.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what. So I actually have something coming out on this issue. Did white supremacy kill Tyree Nichols? I'll give you guys a very short viewpoint. I don't think it did. I think white supremacy itself is a value statement. It is not an actual physical person. The problem with folks who view everything in the terms of power and everything in terms of being artificially made by society is that they believe once they get those levels of power, levels of social influence, they can therefore make those concepts mean whatever they want them to mean. This is precisely why, again, a black person can be a white supremacist despite not having the prerequisite to share the value statement. The prerequisite being you believe the white folks, or white race rather, is inherently supreme to any other race. That's what it originally meant. That's what throughout history we look at the Klan, we look at the neo-Nazi biker gangs, we look at all these people. That's what they professed. The 1488. That's what all this professes. I mean, if you look back through history and you study this stuff, it's very unambiguous what supremacy actually is. But when you put it in a postmodern frame and you tweak it to fit your own ambitions and your own goals, it can go to absurd places like this. And unfortunately, this is an older lady, so she should know better. She should know much better. She should know that personal responsibility is not found in group guilt. It's not found in broad abstract issues that have nothing to do with our lives. This is one of the problems with society today. A lot of folks in society would rather blame abstract amorphous forces for their fates or for things that happen, as opposed to looking at concrete reality. Concrete reality will show you, in almost every case, that there is a causal, cause and effect relationship between certain actions, and there also is a cause and effect relationship between certain behaviors. Policing in America, and there's many things to say about this, has a certain culture to it, but also individuals who interact with policing by now ought to know what that culture is. Individuals who interact with police should know that it is probably improper to resist arrest, but they should also know that it is also improper to bestow death upon someone for resisting arrest. Justice is the principle that keeps society together. Justice, real justice, not social justice, justice is about proportionality. You don't cut someone's hand off for stealing a cookie. You don't do that. It's not proportional. And that is itself becomes an injustice. You don't shoot someone for merely being on your lawn. That's not proportional. You don't kill someone for resisting arrest. That's not proportional. So I'll go into that a little bit further in the future, very soon. But this argument is unfortunate, and unfortunately, there are a lot of folks who have convinced themselves that this is sound thinking when it really is not.
Has anyone ever actually, like, definitively addressed or answered the question of why white people smell like pennies when it rains?
Pennies?
Like, this is not even, like, I mean, this is just, like, a statement of fact. White people be smelling like pennies and quarters when they get wet, like when it rains.
Really?
And it does seem to be specific to white people. Does anyone know why?
No, I've never experienced that. I've been around all kind of people, and I have never experienced anything quite like that. That's. I think that this lady needs to get her olfactory senses checked because something is going on that's not quite okay. Let's continue.
Today I feel sad because I had to sit through a professional development where we were talking about culture and climate, and we were looking at different subgroups of students and how they had answered different survey questions. And when we were looking at gender, the only students listed were male and female. Not the non-binary students, not the transgender students, not the students who marked prefer not to respond.
So here's a talk with a student that I had that makes me happy that I teach kindergarten. So we're walking back from a nature walk because my job is cool. And one of my students stops in line and turns around because I was at the end playing caboose. And he says, "Mr. Cow, do you think I'm a boy or a girl?" I paused and I said, "Student, I don't get to decide if you're a boy or a girl. Only you get to decide if you're a boy or a girl. So what do you think?"
No.
And he says, and he looks contemplative for a second. And then he looks at me and he says, "I'm a boy." And I said, "Excellent news. Thanks for letting me know."
Wow. Well, the premise is not true. Sex is not chosen. It's not something that you just pick. That's just incorrect. As I mentioned before, these things have physical correlatives to them. But the most shocking thing here, which I see, is the fact that this is a conversation taking place with a kindergarten teacher with another kid. That's very shocking to me. If I was a kindergarten teacher and a kid asked me that kind of question, I would simply say, "Hey, you should ask your parents," because those kind of conversations are not meant to be had with strangers that are not in charge of shepherding the existence of that child. As an elementary school teacher, you're there to teach them basic skills. But unfortunately, as this person has shown, in some jurisdictions, that role has accelerated to a different level that now, other than teaching them skills, also means teaching them about certain ideals that may not be true. That may confuse them, that may give them a wrong perspective of the world, and that's just vile. It's very vile, it's disgusting, and it's not okay. It's not okay at all. So I hope this teacher is investigated as soon as possible. I hope this teacher is looked into, and I hope this teacher is reprimanded. I don't know about being fired, but I wouldn't want this person teaching my kids. And I wouldn't care if it was anyone else. I don't care if it's a non-binary person. I don't care if it's a woman, a man. I don't care. There are certain things that are appropriate for youth and certain things that are not appropriate to youth. Because children, their minds are more vulnerable to certain suggestions. And so you want them to have a baseline of ideals that are appropriate so they can therefore make their own opinions as they grow up. If a kid decides when he's 18 or 20 or whatever that he wants to be a girl when he's a boy, that's his decision, and I think as a society, it is my duty not to interfere with his decision, so long as he does not interfere with my perspective or my decision. This is basically what classical liberalism presumes. It presumes that we can exist in a pluralistic society in which we have mutual bonds to each other, but those bonds are not dependent on us agreeing on everything. It's simply dependent on us having a baseline of values, a baseline of views that therefore gives us the ability to work in a sociable manner. The principle of sociability, as the natural law theorists would call it, that's the basis of society. But in order to have that, you must presume certain things about the world. And one of those things you got to presume is that there is an objective truth, and there's a way to find that truth, and that truth is upon which everything else sits. And if that truth were to go away, nothing would exist, everything would perish. And that is threatened by this person and anyone else who really believes this stuff. And it's not just this person, it's every single enterprise that is working towards the goal of destroying the meaningful distinctions that exist on matters of gender and sex. My friends, thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys so much. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, share this video, comment, tell me your thoughts, join my Discord, which is in the comment section down below. Donate if you would like. That information is below as well. My friends, I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.